A very, very happy Monday to you all, Silver Lining Gang. It's your host, Andy Reid, and today I have got a brilliant friend, a incredible mentor, the king of communication, Rik Rushton. How are you, my man?
Well, always better for one of your introductions, mate. I feel like I want to take you around the world with me, which is easy to do at the moment because you just got to get into my laptop, the world of Zoom. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, mate, look, I'm more. You know, I'm there. All you got to do is ask. How are you, man?
I'm very well, and as well as one can be in these challenging times, mate, because we don't want to make light of it. These are the most unprecedented times I've ever experienced in my sort of business professional life. And, we've had sort of challenges in the past with global financial crises and, we've had sort of Y2K bugs, but I don't think anything has come close to what this sort of challenge has been for not just Australians and not just, the world globally, but just, I think, for, everyone's world, whether that be in their own four walls or in their headspace or, thinking with friends and family as you've got sort of in the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, all points of the compass. It's a bloody challenging time. So we need to make sure if ever there was a time to test what we believed as a philosophical approach to life, this is it, isn't it?
100%. One of the key themes that we've had through all of the discussions so far, in various ways, is the number of fronts that it's attacked. The reason why we've started Silver Lining is because just noticing traits in society that are just align themselves quite spookily so with my sort of mental health journey at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And the oncoming mental health pandemic that could come out the back of this is significant. And that will be the combination of your financial, your business, all the different elements all coming together to give you one big whack in the face. So it's a very, very interesting time. Look, Rik, for those of you that don't know who Rik is, mate, human first, professional second. Just give us a very quick MO on who you are.
Well, I'd like to think I am as a very good husband, and I'd like to think I'm an exceptional father. That's how I see myself in my mind space, mate. But certainly from my sort of professional background, 3 decades in real estate, started in sales, went through to, sales management, leadership, owned the company, ran a group, effectively, luckily got into personal development probably way before it was as fashionable as it is today. I think my first professional training program was way back in 1990. So fortunately, since my real estate journey, I was able to sort of develop a bit of a speaking, coaching, consulting sort of business, wrote a book, went okay. That gets me into other industries. That's taken a massive hit, obviously, in the most recent times because conferencing is off. So the majority of my day is spent with, relationships, Andy, that I created more than 3 decades ago with, coaching clients and or, educational clients who get me to zoom into their offices, get me to zoom into their teams. And so it's really quite fun to spend a day in Zoom, which I said to you off air is a bit like a week in normal time, right? It's just back-to-back stuff is going kind of gangbusters. But I've really been fortunate to work in professional sport. I've been really fortunate to work with, brands you'd know, some of the big banks and things of that nature, and companies you wouldn't know. But it's all about how do we communicate, firstly with ourselves best, and then how do we connect and collaborate with our team secondary, and then ultimately what's the collaboration look like going forward in terms of results. So because you have a book out on communication, connection and collaboration and it goes okay, you're automatically an expert, right? But I think anybody who's in a loving relationship or anyone who's, a good father or a parent in any shape or form is probably a very good communicator. Clearly, if you're a good parent in 2020, you're a very good negotiator. So there's lots of skills that are duplicit, I think, in what we share and what I get the great fortune to sort of spend a lot of time kind of, convincing people about. But it is all about mindset. It is all about the conversations we have to ourselves, by ourselves, when no one else is listening. And then that really sets up everything that flows from there, because I've got a very strong belief about that.
Oh, look, the thing is, guys, when we talk about, or when I sort of coin Rik as the king of communication, that's exactly why I feel the way that I feel about Rik as a human and as a mentor and as a professional, and the volume of respect I've got in all of those spheres as well. My personal experiences with you, Rik, were very much internal dialogue. I mean, external dialogue is not something that I generally tend to have too much of an issue with, but it's the internal stuff that I had massive problems with. I was very grateful that we crossed paths at the right time. And that's basically, that is the main reason why I've got you on, because, I know that what you say makes sense and works, and if you follow a path, then it works. But the great thing about Rik, everybody, is the fact that he does it in such a way is to make sure that you're aware that he doesn't have the exact right communication pattern for all 7.38 whatever it is billion people on this entire planet, and he knows that, and that's one of the reasons why he's so good at what he does. Mate, before we crack on, I just want to get just your personal sort of sphere for a second. Like you said, you've taken a bit of a hit with your speaking and coaching and all that sort of stuff from a physical point of view. How has Corona affected you personally? Because I mean, look, as Teflon as you may sound, we've all got, we all have our moments. So tell us how you processed it.
Oh, I mean, economically, it's easy to process because the numbers don't lie, Andy. So it's very easy to see when the revenue stream gets, I wouldn't say slashed in half, but when it gets absolutely taken with a very big hit, that's money you budget for. It's money that you allocate to get forward. And money isn't everything, but it's right there with oxygen, isn't it? So we kind of need it to get through the game of life. So I'm not immune to that, and I don't suspect anybody is realistically. But on the flip side of that, we've been very smart with money potentially over the last few years to make sure that we can sort of, hibernate through a challenging economic winter, if you will. And so, we don't sort of in any shape or form queue up at Centrelink here in Australia, and we don't sort of, have our hand out on the bread line to a degree. So as challenging as it is for us, it's a first world problem. And, how I process that is that ultimately there's going to be a greater need for what I'm doing post this in the next conversation I have in the next 5 minutes, the next 5 hours, next 5 days probably sets up my next 5 months economically, and I'll come out of it stronger. It's given me the great opportunity to realign with a lot of stuff I'm doing, and I've taken a very analog business and made it very digital at the moment, and so using different platforms like Teachable, obviously using Zoom. I've got a lot of audio, video, educational product, which is education on demand. That's sort of up in the cloud somewhere at the moment, which I wouldn't have done had I been in a Qantas club somewhere, or on a speaking platform, or being introduced at a conference across Australasia, or as I was in the back end of last year in Asia and in the US this time last year. So realistically, economically, taking a hit. How do I process that? It's a short-term delay, not an ultimate denial, because in my mindset, there's going to be a stronger need to come out of this. And I can imagine the first audience I speak to when this is all over and we're actually having a human interaction as opposed to a virtual one, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to remind them that you can unmute yourselves. Like there'll be a pretty cool time when that happens. So I'm very much an in the now person dealing with the reality of things, but I'm also future focused around what it could look like, should look like, will look like if I set it up. So reality is to say we can't hold hands around a campfire, sing Kumbaya and get to the other side. We're going to have to do some work in the meantime, but it's a good focus point for us to do it, I think, right here, right now.
Absolutely spot on. I mean, I think that line there, short-term delay, not long-term denial, is absolutely critical. I think that everybody moving forward, it is very much a case. I mean, Charlotte Pascoe, I spoke to a couple of days ago, she said it like off air. Like, it's been a few weeks. It's in the context of things. Few weeks in what is going to be the rest of your life. This will pass, and it is a temporary measure. It's not an absolutely indelible mark that will smash you forever, sort of thing. But obviously, when you're in the thick of it, it can feel like that, right? It can absolutely. Now, we've talked about the economical. I know that you've got 3 pretty brilliant kids. Two older lads and a younger lady who is dominating the field of equestrianism. Is that right? Equestrianism?
Yeah.
Goes to show how much I know. Mate, how have they all got on with it all, and how have you supported them as a parent and dad?
Well, it's interesting because our eldest son is in real estate. He's worked for arguably the best real estate agent in the world, in Bob Wolf, for 2 and a bit years. He came back from that sort of experience, went into commercial real estate to give that a whirl, working for probably arguably the best commercial real estate agent in Australasia. Just on the cusp of all that, went back to his first love, which is residential real estate, and started, I think, day one when it was restrictions coming in, and hadn't been going for more than a week and a bit before it was told, no longer can there be inspections on occupied home. So, he's found that interesting, but he's very much an in the now kind of narrow the focus to say, well, if I'm restricted to playing in one section of the field, I'll be best on ground in that section of the field. So he's always looking for things that he can do in that respect. So he's a pretty stoic young man. He's nearly 28. He doesn't really need me to sort of do anything other than bounce ideas off, and he'll sort of come up with this concept, and he'll say, Dad, what do you think? And I'll give him some feedback on it, but it's quite rare that he would ask me for anything too heavy. Our middle child is a qualified lawyer, but doesn't like the law in that respect. Can't see himself sort of in an office doing that. Loves sport. Obviously, a very talented cricketer. Works at Cricket Australia. Has just been made effectively unemployed because Cricket Australia is just shutting down. So his thought with that is, I think. One of the things that we're very proud of is that both boys have seemingly, just fallen back on some sort of mindset, belief, and values that we'd like to think we've instilled in them for the greater part of their lives. So Chris is very much looking for the opportunity and the difficulty, not the difficulty that's created by the challenge. And so, again, both boys are devotees of, my teaching, I suppose, which I'm sort of influenced a lot by the late, great Jim Rohn, who I know you and I both sort of idolise. And I was really fortunate to do a session for his granddaughter's sort of network marketing team. And I almost had to pinch myself thinking, I'm giving Jim Rohn lessons back to his granddaughter and her team. And that was, literally over the last sort of few days, which is exciting, Andy. But the one thing that's stuck in all those 3 examples I just gave you, whether that be our eldest son, our middle child, or the beautiful Natalie's, sort of upline, downline network marketing team, is that I kept on using the same thing that Jim Rohn gave to me many, many years ago. He said, the winds of challenge, the winds of difficulty, the winds of negativity blow on everybody. And it's not so much the winds that blow, it's what we do with them. And the set of the sails, like your personal philosophy. And the same winds that are careering people into uncertainty, challenge, negativity, can also blow you to a better harbour if you decide where you want to set your sail. And so our boys have both got the understanding that this moment in time doesn't define who they are. It just creates an opportunity to see how good they want to sort of stand up and, lean into the darkness and show a bit of resilience. So, and for Amelia, she's 15. So for her, it's schools from home at the moment, which is an interesting concept. She goes to a very, very good school. And, one of the great things, Andy, is that equine pursuits are still permitted. So she gets to ride 2 or 3 times a week. She has a coaching session once a week. If the Royal Melbourne Show still goes ahead in September, she's there riding. She's qualified for that, that's like the Boxing Day Test match for cricketers, or it's like the AFL final series for footballers. So, at 15, that'll be her second go at, the Royal Melbourne Show and Gary Owen Day and all that sort of stuff. So there's a little bit going on in all their worlds, but I think I'd like to believe selfishly as a parent, you'd have to ask them, but I think they understand they've got a supportive environment, which means mum and dad will help them, no matter what. But it's also a case of, I want to see how they go in these times, to be brutally honest, mate. I'm very much one of these ones who wants them to fall over to see how they pick themselves up a little bit. But Lockie, we know, has lived, in another country on his own, in his middle 20s. Chris is already, with his partner, Jess, has got his first townhouse in Balaclava, and they're self-sufficient as a couple. Having said that, he's lost his job. He's somebody who's got to show some sort of. So all this stuff sounds great in theory, but how do we go in practice? So I'm really very much watching our kids do what I'd like to think we're doing, which is we're standing on the foundations of the personal development lessons that I learnt, we learnt, that together we've kind of got some belief in. And so philosophically speaking, I love the Jim Rohnism of set a better sail. You know, this too shall pass. And so all we've got to do is effectively navigate through these tricky waters, get through the next sort of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or as I like to do it, get from today and then build on that. And rather than get through, we get from, because if we get through it, we'll get through it, I think, God willing. But I want to get from it, because if we get from it, we'll be better for it at the other end of it. And that's the difference between getting through the day or getting from the day. And, you know, before COVID-19, there were a lot of people just getting through the day. There were a lot of people getting through the week. There were a lot of people getting through the month. And they got through the year and went, shit, that was a fast year. I don't know where that went. Whereas if we got something from, we can look back and go, you know what? As challenging as the time as this was, it was able to, for me, take my business from a very analog position to a very digital position. And so I've got something from that period of time. So, you know, much rather live with that sort of, you know, progress through these challenging times than just getting, because too many people are describing the shallow waters and the negative waters, Andy. So I think I want to sort of look at what the opportunities are in these sort of challenging times.
And that's, I mean, what other choice have you got? Like literally, like effectively, what other choice have you got? You know, wallowing and this is part of this show, is to provide that spine, that backbone that some people don't feel that they have right now. What other choice have you got? Yeah, ultimately, you can either sit there and you know, feel sorry for yourself or what have you, but that's not going to make it change. So, you know, so it's one of those things where you can either, you know, and look, there will be damage limitation, there will be damage control in many actions that are being taken right now in business or in life or whatever the case may be. But at the same time, once you've sort of plugged the holes, so to speak, or done the best that you can, you either look to see how you can reset that sail, or just start building a better boat so it doesn't leak next time.
Yeah, either that, or, you know, at least have your sail up. I mean, that's the most important thing. A lot of people are just letting the boat drift, and if you go with the flow in the game of life, the flow always leads to the biggest drop. It's the river speeds up, or the ocean sort of takes you to, you know, a real dark place. But my message would be to say, set a better sail. Can't get there overnight. You can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction that quickly. And so, okay, this is the current situation, and this will be the new norm for the next little bit, however long that is. Now, no one knows when the other side of this thing is, and even when we get there, it's never going to be the same. So, but no different from my parents' generation, your parents' generation, my grandfather. I mean, I'm doing a lot of research about our lineage at the moment, and, you know, I've learnt in the most recent times about my grandfather getting his mother to sign him up to go and fight in World War I because he was too young, and the fact that, you know, he got sent back from Cairo in a slow boat, landing in you know, a harbour down under with a toe tag on, not expected to survive the journey because he had typhoid. Now, but for his resilience, I'm not here. And but for his resilience, you know, I don't have this opportunity to live this thing called life. So how dare I sit in the corner and kowtow and say my income's been reduced by this thing called COVID-19, when my grandfather, I should say, my father's father was effectively, you know, risking his life, didn't have to do it, put himself in harm's way. Now, maybe he was chasing an idealistic dream, I don't know. But ultimately what I'm trying to sort of say, Andy, is as tough as these times are, I always think I'll never work as hard as my father did. And I guarantee I'll never work as hard as my grandfather did. And so, you know, I want my children to understand that resilience is one of the key things, because we can all do well when we're all doing well. It's how do you go when things aren't going so well? And that gets down to, you know, no outside influence is going to give that to you. Social media is not going to give that to you. Reality TV is not going to give that to you. The only person who can give you the certainty you need right here, right now is you. So make sure the conversations you're having with yourself are, you know, uplifting, that you're a cheerleader, not a critic, that you absolutely speak to yourself in a manner that describes the reality you want, not describing the horror movie you're in and the negativity that you don't want. Because what we tend to do at the moment is, and I find it when I have these coaching sessions, I go, you know, what are you trying to achieve, or what do you want? And, you know, most of the responses, Andy, are they spend a minute or two telling me what they don't want, and I just kind of go, well, you understand where your focus goes, energy flows. So all you're telling me is you don't want more of this negativity stuff, and yet you're filling your head with it. So I'm not saying, you know, bury your head in the sand and say none of that is happening. That's all happening. We get that. But I think we've got to be very careful in between what we think and what we say. There's a gap. And if we fill that gap with positivity, we'll have a positive outcome. If we fill it with negativity, obviously this isn't hard to follow, you'll have a negative outcome. But I think in that gap, we're letting outside influences dictate what we fill it with. And I'm suggesting, my personal belief is, the minute you wake, if you wake up this morning and hit the snooze button, you've already pre-framed the day as, I'm happy to snooze and cruise through the day. But if you wake up with, the first thing that pops in your head, what am I grateful for today? I'll tell you what, I'm grateful I woke up. There'd be a fair few people across the planet that would love that box to tick at the moment, especially anyone who's listed in the death notices on any paper anywhere in the world at the moment, right? So I'm not making light of this. I wake up with an attitude of gratitude, which sounds corny, it sounds hokey, but I'm telling you, the minute you wake up with the attitude of another day above ground is a great day, what am I thankful for? I'm thankful for the love of a good woman since 1983. I'm thankful for 3 amazing kids. I'm grateful for the fact I woke up in Australia. No better place in the world to wake up than right here, right now, down under, right? So before I even get out of bed, Andy, before my feet hit terra firma in my headspace, I've already got, what am I grateful for? Because I've got that filled in my head now, then my morning routine's always the same. I hit the shower, the faucet splashes water on me. As it's hitting me, I'm going, okay, am I ready to go today? Am I ready to give my very best today? Am I ready to jump into it today? And if I'm not, I'll go back to bed. The good news is I haven't had to sort of charge back into bed too often over the last little bit, because I'm asking myself really cool questions. If you want better results in the game of life, you've got to ask good questions. Don't ask poor questions, ask great questions. What's the best thing that's going to happen today? I'm going to be on a pretty cool show, this morning. I've been going since 6:30 a.m. With authenticity. We're almost 2 hours on for that period of time. I've already had 3 great Zoom sessions, but I knew they were coming, because as the water's hitting my face, I'm saying, okay, what's the outcome I want to give? Where am I going with this, and how can I add value to that? So in between waking up, thinking, and acting, there's a gap. Fill that gap. You be the author of that gap. Don't let Sky News do it. You be the author of that gap. Don't let Fox News do it. You be the author of that gap. Don't let print media do it. Don't let social media do it. Don't let anyone else do it. You protect that gap as best you can with putting into it what you want. Not saying you bury your head in the sand. I really want our listeners and our viewers to understand this. I'm not saying, be, an ostrich and bury your head and go, I'll wake up again in another 3 months when hopefully we're on the other side of this. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is, spend a few minutes getting an update. You don't need hours on it. This is not a minute-by-minute thing to keep on tracking what's going on with COVID-19. Get your headspace right. You take control of it. You're the author. Write whatever you want. It's a blank book. Today is a blank book. What you fill it with is really up to you.
And I'm glad that you make that distinction, because for a lot of people, and look, if you were to look at the mental health stats and whatnot, a lot of people that really don't pay much, if any, attention to this are guys, right? And guys, for a large percentage, a lot of them won't understand, or won't allow themselves to understand exactly what it is that you just talked about there, positive self-talk and all that sort of stuff. It can come across, if it at face value, to a lot of alpha males in particular, who might be at the surface being the best ones to handle this situation, but I'm telling you now, inside they're probably crumbling rather substantially. But they'll be the ones that will not give this much credence, but they're the ones that kind of need it the most. If they are alpha, then they have laid that expectation on themselves to be the linchpin of the entire thing, to be the rock on which everything is formed. But if the inside of that rock's fading away, if it's corroding a little bit, then they've got to be really careful, because that could be stuff that just doesn't go away for like the rest of their lives if they are not careful about how they are internalizing all this dialogue and what have you. And it's interesting how you made the point of making sure that you don't have external things influence your thought process and what have you. I've got Imi Callister coming on a little bit later today, and we're going to be talking about the influence of social media on society and what have you. And that, that in itself, I think that, the media needs to be hung, drawn and quartered for some of the way that they've gone about some of this, right?
Absolutely. And I think, Andy, Imi's probably one of the best, certainly I know anyway, in that space, given her formal role and what she's doing now, and I just see the stats since 2007. Mental health, emotional well-being, call it what you will, has just escalated dramatically in line with how much social media has sort of entered our worlds. I mean, in 2007, the App Store was empty. Didn't mean that we didn't have any emotional well-being challenges. We did, but every year on year since 2007, now 13 years on, mental health has gone through the roof. And the answer is because never have before have we been more connected and disconnected with the world than what social media is. It gives us a chance to measure ourselves. You know, you and I, if we were in the same year level at school, we'd wait through an end of semester exam potentially to look at how are we stacking up against each other. Well, at the social media world at the moment, we're stacking up against each other at the speed of click. You know, so we see all these posts going on about the lifestyle that we're living, and, you know, out of here peeps from the business lounge somewhere with the business class airfare return ticket showing, and, you know, off to some exotic location. I go, well, show me the photo at 1 a.m. tomorrow morning when you wake up going, I've just put this on my credit card. How am I going to pay for it? Don't show me. You'll never see that one. So you can't let someone's highly edited life make you feel bad about your unedited life, if that makes sense. So my message there is, and I post a little bit on social media, not as much as it looks like I post because I don't do it all. I've got you know, my business manager doing a lot of it for me. And yeah, again, it's a bit like a job interview. We're only going to put the best references up there, obviously. But, you know, I'm a realist, understand that, you know, if you want me to, I can get very dark, very dirty, very negative about the world. I can go there very easily if I like. But you know what? It's not about IQ, it's about EQ. So it's not about the information that gives us that reason to be depressed. It's about the emotional intelligence to say that, okay, the past is the past, the future is the future. I'm in control of none of those two things right here, right now. Only what I'm doing right here, right now, that can lead me to a better future if I want. So, you know, I'm very much into that belief of fill your head with the things you want, not what you don't want. You know, put some positivity in there, be aware of the negativity, but don't let it dominate your thinking, because as you think, you feel, as you feel, you act, as you act, you focus, and where your focus goes, energy flows, creates a habit, and it's almost like a playlist. It just repeats. So make sure the thinking's positive, you'll feel positive, you'll act positive, your focus will be positive, and if you repeat, you know, and again, I'm saying, I can't stress this enough, I'm not ignorant to the challenge that's out there, and you know, but I am very much aware of what's the gift here, because sometimes, as we all know, mate, the best gifts come poorly wrapped. So what is the best gift out of all of this sort of time right here, right now? And you know, one of the challenges for me about being able to speak well in public, or okay in public, is that just about every funeral I've attended over the last decade, I have to actually either speak at it or deliver the eulogy, which is really hard when it's sort of people that I've had a real close personal connection with. But I also see it as a gift, because it gives me a chance to sort of maybe highlight some things about and some qualities about this person that might not have been sort of spoken about without my little input to a degree. But here's my message there, Andy. This is a great time. This is a great time to pick up a phone and say to somebody, hey, long time no chat, but I just want to let you know before anything else goes by, you really had a really cool impact in my life. I've got a lot of things in my world right here, right now, because of your impact and your involvement in me, and you changed my life. And I've done that with teachers. I've done that with sport. I just connected with an old soccer coach who I hadn't spoken to for the better part of 35 years over the last 2 weeks. You know, finally found him where he was in his retirement village, had a really cool conversation with him, made me feel extraordinary. You know, this is a great time, and you and I are good friends with Paul McGee, the sumo guy. He's written 12 best-selling bloody books, and you know, he talks about that sort of attitude of gratitude. You know, I was just online with him a couple of days ago. He said, today is a great Tuesday, isn't it? I said, well, no, it's actually, I think we're recording this on a Thursday. He goes, no, it's a Tuesday. We can choose anything we want today. It's our choice. It's a Tuesday. And I thought, what a great distinction that is. You know, first we make our choices, then our choices make us. First we make our decisions, then our decisions make us. So I think one of the things I want our listeners and viewers to get out today, if they hear anything at all, it's that, you know, maybe we're in more control of this than we'd like to think. And we're the author of it. We've got a pen. We can write any story we like, but just be careful about the story we tell ourselves, because if the story is, there's no hope, there's no opportunities, there's no this, there's no that, we're in all sorts of trouble. A better story to write would say there's great hope, helping other possibilities emerge, out of these challenging times. What's the other possibility? So I know on the other side of this, my income will increase, but also my ability to never leave my home will continue to increase because of the lessons I'm learning now about how I can package education on demand, record a lot of stuff, have it up in the cloud, and means that I'll spend less time in Qantas clubs and airports, which can't be a bad thing, right?
Wow, absolutely. Absolutely, man. And look, and on that note, I'm conscious that you've got to fly, mate, but where, you talk about, guys, everything that he just said, I am essentially a bit of a personification of everything that Rik just said. I'm in the UK for certain reasons that I won't go into right now, but they ain't great. They're not great reasons. And because of everything that Rik's just talked about, and I implore you to re-listen to this 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. I've had the fortune of speaking to Rik over however many conversations over the last few years, and every single time I've been incredibly grateful for every single one, because the culmination of all of those conversations has led me to be in a position with a mental framework that is strong enough to resist, I think, in anyone's terms, a fairly sizable personal storm that's going on right now. And Rik, I want to end on this by saying that a lot of it is down to you, my friend. And like I said, again, we're not ignoring the crap. And I'm telling you, what we've got going on is crap. But I'm a damn sight more grateful for what I've had and what I've got and what I'm going to have moving forward, as opposed to what I'm potentially about to lose. And it's all about choice. It's a very binary and it's a very primary decision. You can either choose to look at things one way or another. I actually put a quote up from Marcus Aurelius, who said that basically saying that anything that happens to you means nothing until you add value to it. So the cool thing about that is you get to decide what value each thing has, and the whole eulogy thing that you mentioned just before is so pertinent to today's world, to today's society. You can either sit and weep and mourn and whatever, or you can celebrate the things that you have got. And I think people have had a lot of and a lot of it is material stuff, right? Being stripped away from them in what's gone on. But value what you do have. You've got your relationships. You've got an ability to communicate via this thing called the internet that is simply the biggest blessing in the world right now, that someone invented this damn thing, because otherwise we would be in isolation and we would be in trouble. Yeah. And everyone talks about self-isolation, but it's never been further from the truth when you think about it, right? When you think about your diary, like, you wouldn't have talked to this many people in one day, right?
100%. And I think, you're absolutely spot on, mate, that, a lot of people are saying I'm over this being stuck at home. You're not stuck at home. You're safe at home, and you use technology to stay connected. So, again, it gets back to, how do you want to process this? And without, recapping the whole sort of talk in one conversation, it really is about you taking in between, as you say, the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and the Stoicism, Stoics, that sort of stuff. And, I've read his book that really is almost like the handbook for personal development, isn't it? Right. But
pretty much.
When he talks about the aspect around, in between stimulus and response, we get to choose. My stimulus with everything is a split second. It's, again, I can't stress this enough, but it's the conversations we have to ourselves, by ourselves, when no one else is listening. And as long as you're putting a better voice track on that, and as long as you're putting a better movie trailer on that, then the preview is going to be a great promise of what's ahead of us if we're prepared to pay the price. Now, that's the real key message I want to finish with, is that we're not going to get through the other side just deep thinking philosophically about this. We're going to have to do the work as well. I mean, Jimmy Rohn used to always say to me, chant if you want, chant and rant, but without action, it's it's really just fallacy. You've got to do the work. So you can go into your garden and say there's no weeds and chant that, but unless you're pulling the weeds out, there's going to be weeds. So we need to follow up all the philosophical stuff with some hard work, and nothing's going to replace getting these two things dirty. rolling up doing the work. And that's what excites me at the moment. And I'm just narrowing my focus. I get through today, or I can get from it. If I get from it and I help other people get from it, together we're going to get through it. So the best strategy I can give all of our listeners and viewers is, if you think you're doing it tough, help someone else, because I guarantee there's someone out there doing it far challenging, far more worse than you. Get in touch, reach out, help them get through. If you bring them onto your lifeboat and get them through, we get through together. It's kind of really exciting if you can get that happening. So that's why these particular silver lining episodes are critical, I think, to everybody's sort of emotional well-being. But more importantly, you and I feel better for the experience. What have we given up? A half hour of our life, realistically. It was a half hour we had to invest somewhere. Better here than social media, better here than Netflix, better here than reality TV, better here than just about anything else. So other than our respective families. But in closing, mate, thanks for the opportunity. It's been great. I do have to go because I'm on another one in 4 minutes. But I just want to say to you and your beautiful family, give Flick my best, and obviously the amazing kids. And please give my very, very best to your parents, who I know you're in the UK for at the moment. And I send to you lots of love. And if I can help in any way, as you know, just sing out.
Mate, you're an absolute star. What an amazing end to my week, because it's Sunday night where I am, and what an amazing start to everybody over in Oz. Gang, you guys have yourselves an awesome week. Rewatch this because it will help. Rik, as always, man, it's been an absolute blessing to spend some time with you.
Thank you, brother. All the best. Stay well.
All right, take care, man.
Bye now.